Hey guys, this is Eckhartsladder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars Squadrons video over here on EcksToo. This is like the 5th video we've put out this week after I got to play test Star Wars Squadrons for about 3 hours. So if you haven't already subscribed to this channel and you are a Squadrons fan, well, what are you doing? So this is the second of 2 campaign videos I had planned for this week. Last time I talked about my initial reaction after having played the prologue for the Squadrons campaign and how I was really excited to play the rest of it. And today I'll be talking about the capital ships, which are both confirmed and which I think may appear in the campaign. And some of this may also apply to multiplayer as well. We don't know whether each multiplayer map will have different capital ships and escort ships and whatever else, or if it'll be the same ships for each different map, but there's a possibility that some of these vessels I'll be discussing could make their way into other multiplayer game modes. So since we will be making some assumptions and some guesses later on, let's talk about the campaign. And just a reminder, as much as I would love to show you guys footage from this, we weren't allowed to record any, so you'll have to imagine alongside with me. We know most of the campaign will take place after the Battle of Endor. However, a portion, perhaps just the prologue, does take place directly after the Battle of Yavin. But yeah, in most missions you'll be flying battles that take place after the original trilogy. And we don't know whether that will be just a couple of months, maybe a year, or whether there'll be multiple missions kind of spanning the era. My guess would be because we're looking at a single squadron on each side, and because a lot of the plot seems to have to do with the Starhawk project, that the campaign will be set probably in the months and days after the Battle of Endor and before the Battle of Jakku. Although there could be an epilogue or something. We've seen that in games like Star Wars Battlefront 2, where that takes place in the time span and then we get to the end of the game and we get a little jump forward. Anyway, with that being said, let's first look at the Imperial roster, and we'll start off with confirmed ships. So first of all, we see Imperial Star Destroyers in this game, specifically the ISD-2s. I don't think there will be ISD-1s. Even in the prologue level, the Empire is using the newer model Star Destroyer, which is actually fine from a canon perspective because they had been introduced in a limited capacity at that point. And it really just doesn't make sense to have the 2 different Star Destroyer models because you've got to do a completely different bridge and the guns and everything, and one, in this case, one type at least, is completely fine. We also have the Arquitens Command Cruiser, or the Imperial Command Cruiser, which is sort of like the Empire's Nebulon B analog. It's their medium-sized frigate. It appears lots in Star Wars Rebels and other pieces of Star Wars media, and it complements the Imperial Star Destroyer nicely. The ISD has lots of big guns and is an absolute capital ship killer, while the Arquitens is seriously down in size, still has a lot of firepower, but is much more flexible and pound per pound would have more anti-starfighter weapons. In fleet battles, you'll see Arquitens and their Nebulon B counterparts sort of maintaining position in front of the cruiser, sort of providing fire support, and they can be very, very deadly. For reference, the Arquitens is 325 meters, which is 25 meters longer than the Nebulon B. Alright, so next up we have the Gazanti, which at 62 meters is essentially a transport ship, but one which did carry weaponry and some pretty heavy armor. We see the Gazanti in the campaign actually taking a tie into battle through hyperspace, which I thought was a really nice detail. Basically, you leave the Imperial Star Destroyer, you dock with a Gazanti, then you jump to the battlefield before the main fleet so you can secure things. Again, nice touch, very thoughtful, and I love the design of the Gazanti as well. We might see it do things like deploy walkers down to a planet's surface or just operate in a transport role otherwise. It's not really a direct analog to the GR-75, but it's probably the closest the Empire will be getting. Next up in confirmed ship, we have the Quasar Fire class carrier, and this is actually one of my favorite little ships in Star Wars. And I say little because it's not nearly as impressive or as iconic as something like an ISD, but I love the pure functionality of the ship. It's basically a flying hangar with a couple of guns strapped on, and it makes a lot of sense that the Empire would be using something like this given the fact that most of their ships aren't hyperspace capable. So seeing the Quasar, in numbers by the way, I think the Imperial fleet you play among at the very beginning has like 6 of them, was a really nice surprise for me. In Legends, the Quasar was given a size of 340 meters long and had about 4 weapon batteries and emplacements, so not really heavily armed, but if the Empire's just facing down pirates or a civilian population, it can certainly hold its own. The final confirmed capital ship for the Empire is the Raider class corvette. The Raider, like the CR-90, is an anti-fighter corvette. In fleet fleet battles, it patrols the battlefield and will just annihilate any fighters that come by, but it also can provide some light fire support against larger targets like frigates and, in some cases, even the enemy cruiser. But generally, it's very fast, it's mobile, it moves around the battlefield, but is not nearly as survivable as the other large ships. One raider class, the Corvus, was the main ship in Star Wars Battlefront 2, although there's no indications that the Corvus itself will actually appear in the game. Alright, so that's all of the confirmed capital ships, at least that I'm remembering from my play session. However, I thought it'd be fun to talk about a few ships that may appear in the game, and the most obvious one to me is an immobilizer class cruiser, the Empire's interdiction vessel. I mean, name a more iconic Star Wars space scenario than the Rebel fleet trying to escape from an Imperial trap with interdictors. The ship has appeared in mainstream Star Wars media, including most notably Star Wars Rebels, and I think destroying an interdictor makes for a sort of interesting mission profile without actually having to change anything substantial. You're still just destroying a ship, but there's different context to it. I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw another large Imperial capital ship. We know the Rebels have two, the Liberty and the MC-75. My guess, and this is sort of out there, would be a Victory-class Star Destroyer. Through everything I've seen, Ian Fraser, who's the lead dev on the game, seems to be drawing heavily from Star Wars Legends, including games like X-Wing vs. TIE Fighter, so I just think the Victory-class Star Destroyer is an obvious choice, and it would also be the first time we really saw a Victory in Star Wars canon, so that would be nice. I also wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like a Dreadnought-class heavy cruiser in the game. I mean, it's also appeared in Star Wars Rebels. It fits in really nicely with Architens and Quasars and Raiders, and would sort of fill a niche in the Imperial Navy because it is significantly more powerful than something like an Architens, but also much less powerful than a Star Destroyer, so it'd be an interesting enemy to fight, and I just think visually it's a really nice ship. Alright, so I do also have a few guesses which I don't think are likely, but which are possible. We could see maybe a far-off glimpse into the future, as I mentioned. Maybe we get a brief look at the Resurgent or the forces of the Empire as they're rendezvousing with Admiral Sloane, including a Super Star Destroyer. We could perhaps also get the Onager. I don't think it's likely, and I'm really only saying that because the Starhawk features in the game, but it is possible. These aren't capital ships, but we could also see the Empire launch some sort of ground invasion, so alongside the Lambda shuttle, which has been confirmed, we could see something like a Titan barge or a Zeta-class shuttle, but that's not really a capital ship. So let's move on to the New Republic side. I'm gonna go through the confirmed ships a little bit more quickly. With the Mon Calamari cruisers, we have both the Liberty, the winged MC-80, and the smaller MC-75. We have Nebulon Bs, like the medical frigate from Empire Strikes Back. I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with the ship class. We have CR-90s, we have GR-75s, not really a capital ship, but a transport, and of course we have the Starhawk in some form. It's not clear whether the Starhawk we see will be finished, whether they'll actually engage in combat. We do know, however, that a big part of the campaign will be trying to protect, on the New Republic side, or sabotage on the Imperial side, the Starhawk project. As for guesses, Admiral Ackbar is in the game, so we might see the home one. I don't think that's too unreasonable. We also know that Hera Syndulla is in the game, so I would really like to see the Acclamator that she uses in Alphabet Squadron 1 and 2, the Lodestar, actually appear as well. I think that would be a really cool expanded universe tie-in. Now, there's some things in Alphabet Squadron 2 which make this, I'd say, less likely. You can read that, though. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't yet. I would also love to see something like a captured Imperial Star Destroyer serving under the New Republic. We know that many of their Star Destroyers went into the Starhawk project, but they would have also needed some command ships for the short term. If Hera, for example, is using an Acclamator, surely an Imperial Star Destroyer would have some use in the New Republic's navy. Other than that, and not tied to any particular faction, we have the iconic BFF freighter, which first appeared in the original X-Wing game. We also saw GR-75s carrying civilians there, so there may also be more unaffiliated, i.e. not New Republic or Imperial ships. However, that is all of the confirmed and some of my suspected ships for Star Wars Squadrons. What do you think? Which one of these vessels that I talked about maybe being in the game would you most like to see? Is there any that you're really happy made the cut? What's your personal hope for the game? Let me know all of that and more down in the description. Till next time though, guys, this has been Eckhartsladder. Make sure to sub to EcksToo if you haven't. Have a good one, and may the Force be with you.